Have you ever wondered just how far people will go when an authority figure tells them to do something? Or what happens when good people are put in a truly evil place? Today, we're diving deep into some of the most shocking and controversial psychological experiments in history. These aren't just lab studies. They're terrifying windows into the darker side of human nature that completely changed how we see ourselves. So, buckle up, because things are about to get intense. First up, let's talk about the infamous Milgram experiment. In the early 1960s, a Yale University psychologist named Stanley Milgram wanted to understand obedience to authority. He was haunted by the question of how so many ordinary German citizens could participate in the atrocities of the Holocaust. Were they all monsters? Or could anyone be capable of such acts under the right circumstances? So, he set up an experiment. He recruited participants for what they thought was a study on memory and learning. Each participant was assigned the role of a teacher, and another person, who was actually an actor, played the learner. The teacher's job was to ask the learner questions. For every wrong answer, the teacher had to deliver an electric shock to the learner. The shocks started small, at 15 volts, but increased with each wrong answer, all the way up to a bone-chilling 450 volts, labeled 30. Now, here's the twist. The shocks weren't real. The learner was an actor who would grunt, shout, and eventually fall silent as the voltage increased. But the teacher didn't know that. They believed they were genuinely hurting another person. A man in a white lab coat, the authority figure, stood by, calmly telling the teacher to continue whenever they hesitated. He'd say things like, "Please continue," or "The experiment requires that you continue." So, what do you think happened? How many people do you think went all the way to 450 volts? Most people predicted only a tiny fraction, maybe 1% of truly sadistic individuals. The reality was horrifying. A staggering 65% of participants, 2 out of every 3 people, administered the full, potentially lethal 450-volt shock. These were ordinary people, teachers, engineers, postal workers. They showed immense stress, sweating, trembling, and pleading to stop. Yet most of them kept flipping the switches when the authority figure insisted. The Milgram experiment revealed something deeply unsettling about us: the powerful human tendency to obey authority, even when it conflicts with our own conscience. It showed that the situation, not just a person's character, can be a massive driver of behavior. We aren't as in control as we like to think. Now, let's move from obedience to the power of the situation itself. Fast forward to 1971, to the basement of Stanford University. This is where psychologist Philip Zimbardo conducted one of the most notorious experiments ever, the Stanford Prison Experiment. Zimbardo wanted to see what would happen if you put good people in a simulated evil environment. Does humanity win out, or does the situation corrupt them? He recruited 24 healthy, psychologically stable male college students. He randomly assigned half to be prisoners and the other half to be guards in a mock prison he built in the university's basement. The guards were given uniforms, billy clubs, and mirrored sunglasses to prevent eye contact. The prisoners were arrested at their homes by real police, stripped, deloused, and given smocks to wear with only a number 4 identification. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks. It didn't even make it to 1. It was shut down after just 6 days because things spun out of control so quickly. The guards, who were just regular students moments before, became sadistic and authoritarian. They subjected the prisoners to psychological torture, forcing them to do push-ups as punishment, stripping them, putting them in solitary confinement, and waking them up in the middle of the night for head counts. They seemed to enjoy their power. And the prisoners, they became passive, helpless, and emotionally broken. They internalized their roles. Within a couple of days, some had mental breakdowns. The line between role-playing and reality completely blurred. Even Zimbardo himself, who acted as the prison superintendent, got so caught up in his role that he lost his scientific objectivity. He started thinking like a prison boss, not a researcher. It was his own girlfriend, another psychologist, who came to observe, who was horrified by what she saw and convinced him to end the experiment. The Stanford Prison Experiment demonstrated the terrifying power of social roles and situations. It suggested that the environment can be so powerful that it can overwhelm our individual personalities and morals. It's a chilling reminder of how quickly the structure of power can corrupt. But what about our deepest, most primal fears? Let's go back a bit to 1920. To an experiment that is ethically unthinkable today. The Little Alberta experiment, conducted by John B. Watson, the father of behaviorism. This study aimed to prove that fear could be conditioned. The subject was a 9-month-old baby, known as Little Albert. Initially, Albert was a stable, unemotional child. He wasn't afraid of things like a white rat, a rabbit, or a monkey. Watson would show him the white rat, and Albert would reach for it, curious. But then, the experiment began. Every time Albert reached for the rat, Watson would sneak up behind him and strike a steel bar with a hammer, creating a sudden, terrifyingly loud noise. Naturally, the loud noise scared Albert and made him cry. After doing this repeatedly, something changed. Albert began to associate the white rat with the scary noise. Soon, just the sight of the rat was enough to make him burst into tears and try to crawl away. He was now conditioned to fear the rat. But it didn't stop there. Albert's fear generalized. He became terrified of other furry objects, like a rabbit, a dog, and even a Santa Claus mask with a white cotton beard. Watson had successfully created a phobia in a baby. The most tragic part of this story is that Albert's mother moved away before Watson could attempt to decondition the fear. We don't know for sure what happened to little Albert, but it's believed he died at the age of 6 from a medical condition, likely carrying these conditioned fears with him for his short life. The experiment proved a point about learning, but at a huge ethical cost, highlighting the profound responsibility researchers have toward their subjects. Finally, let's look at an experiment that explored conformity and social pressure. The Asch conformity experiments. In the 1950s, Solomon Asch wanted to know if people would conform to a group's opinion even if it was clearly wrong. Imagine you're in a room with 7 other people, all part of a vision test. The experimenter shows you 2 cards. On one card, there's a single line. On the other, there are 3 lines of different lengths. Your task is simple. Say which of the 3 lines matches the length of the single line. It's an easy, obvious answer. The first few rounds, everyone agrees. But then, something strange happened. The experimenter shows a new set of lines, and the answer is again obvious. But the first person in the group gives a deliberately wrong answer. Then the second person gives the same wrong answer, and the third, and so on. Now it's your turn. All 7 people before you have given an answer that you know, with your own eyes, is incorrect. What do? Do you stick to what you know is right? Or do you go along with the group? Asch found that about 75% of participants conformed to the group's incorrect answer at least once. Overall, a third of the participants consistently went along with the group's wrong choice. When interviewed later, some said they genuinely started to doubt their own eyes. Others admitted they didn't want to be the odd one out, to be ridiculed or thought of as peculiar. This experiment shows the immense power of social pressure. It reveals our deep-seated need to fit in and belong, a need so strong that it can make us deny our own senses. So what's the takeaway from all this? These experiments, while ethically horrifying by today's standards, forced humanity to confront some uncomfortable truths. They showed us that the line between good and evil is permeable. They revealed that our behavior is powerfully shaped by authority, situations, conditioning, and our desire to conform. They were crucial in establishing the strict ethical guidelines that protect human participants in research today. These studies serve as a permanent, chilling reminder that understanding our own psychology, our own vulnerabilities, is one of the most important things we can ever do. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the human psyche as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world around us. See you next time.